Hey guys, welcome back to Valhalla Warfare with Freya. Today I'm actually going to be doing a video about breeding. I'm hoping this video is pretty interesting for all of you. I know a lot of you have been asking me some questions about breeding and how I get all the stats of my dinos and all my mutations and stuff like that, so I finally decided to do a video about breeding. So this might be a couple videos long. It is quite a bit of information. I'm going to be going into a lot of depth about how to get the perfect stats on your dinos, how to tame the perfect breeding dinos, and of course we can go into a little bit about mutations, but unfortunately there's not a whole lot of information about getting mutation colors as it is pretty much all luck. But I can also tell you how to enhance your luck a little bit. So if you're interested in learning about how to breed on Ark Mobile, please stay tuned into this video. So before I get into breeding, do note the difficulty of the server you're on, whether that's easy, medium, hard, or brutal. All wild dinos do spawn at different levels, and their tamed max levels are all different. So on an easy server, wild dinos do spawn between levels 1 and 30. Their maxed taming limit can be 450. Of course, on an easy server, that is pretty much impossible to get a tamed level 450 dino, as dinos do only spawn at level 30. If you do so happen to get a tamed level 450 dino in some way or another on an easy server, the server will keep it. It is possible to get a level 450 dino on an easy server, so just keep that in mind. Also, medium servers, while dinos do spawn between levels 5 to 150. Again, they can be tamed up to level 450, which is possible. You can knock out a level 150 dino and it can be tamed up to level 450. Hard, wild dinos do spawn between levels 10 and 300. Again, on the hard servers, the tamed max level limit is 450. Brutal servers, wild dinos do spawn between levels 15 to 450. On a brutal server, the tamed level limit is 600. Keep in mind that sorry about that. Keep in mind that cave-dwelling creatures are excluded in those levels. So if you were to run the swamp cave or the yeti cave, for instance, and you tame like a wolf in the yeti cave, chances are it's going to tame over that max limit, because those dinos in those caves aren't meant to necessarily be tamed. Caves are meant to be a lot harder for you to do. So if you were to tame a wolf in a yeti cave, it will go over the max limit, and then once the server goes down for maintenance, you will never see that dino again, as it did tame over the max level limit. So to get started into stats, how does stats work exactly? Well, it's quite simple. They're all random on wild dinos. All dinos have fixed level 1 stats, so let's say wild level 15 dino spawns, Ark will randomly apply those 15 levels to any of the dino's level 1 stats, whether that's health, stamina, oxygen, weight, food, melee damage, and or speed. Note that when a wild dino gets tamed, its speed will automatically revert to 100%. And if it had any of those random level ups into speed, they will be lost once tamed, just because speed's a little bit different. So if you were to tame a griffin and it had any level ups into speed, it will be lost, and the griffin will be tamed at 100% speed. But any of the other levels that it had randomly into any of its other stats will be kept once tamed. So if you want to become a breeder, know that stats are everything, and wild dinos are key to breeding. Now, what is the perfect tamed breeding dino? Well, once it's unconscious, you don't want it to lose any levels or taming efficiency. With this being said, you don't want to punch it accidentally or let it get attacked, as the efficiency will go down and you'll lose levels. Also, make sure you're feeding the unconscious dino its preferred food as well. This can be looked up if you don't exactly know what the dino's preferred food is, so that you can be prepared when you go to tame it. A perfect tame dino is when it has lost no levels during taming, and you can also use a balm to speed the taming process up quicker. If you do use a balm, don't worry, that has absolutely no effect on the dino. It just speeds up the taming quicker so that you can tame the dino a lot faster. And if you use a balm and its preferred food, it will tame very fast versus using no balm and its preferred food, or using a balm and food that it likes but not necessarily its preferred food. Even though balms do increase the taming, do keep in mind I would definitely use its preferred food and a balm so that you can tame it very fast. When it comes time for breeding, the base stats on your wild dinos are the only ones that actually matter. If you were to put in levels yourself or imprint on the baby, for example, those extra levels into those stats will actually not transfer over when breeding. So if you have your base wild male and then you have a female that you put some extra levels into and you imprinted on, those extra stats on that female will not transfer over to the baby. So keep that in mind. I would not suggest leveling up any of your breeding dinos, and definitely do not imprint so that you can see what you're working with all the time. If you do imprint, that's okay. I would just suggest not imprinting so that you can always see the base stats when breeding so that you don't have to do the math. It will just make your life 100 times easier if you don't imprint on babies, unless it is the baby you want to keep. If you do get a baby you want to keep, especially for breeding, again, I wouldn't imprint on it. It will make your life a lot more difficult. Not imprinting will allow you to be able to see the base stats so that you know what you're breeding with and what you're working with. The only reason I would suggest imprinting on a baby is if it is your final product and that is the one you are going to be keeping and you are done breeding. So to get started with breeding, you want your male and female to be the same level. So for example, you want to have a level 50 male and a level 50 female. Let's say your female has 600 health, let's say your male has 600 health and your female has 720 health or something. That baby that will come from both of them will actually have a chance to be born with a higher stat from that female. This goes for every stat except for speed, as the babies will always be born with 100% speed. As you're breeding, you'll notice stats from both generation 0 parents, which will be your original parents, are transferring over to the baby. Your generation 0 parents are going to be your base stat breeders. So let's say you're on attempt 5 of breeding. You'll notice that the baby is now level 60 and has all the best stats from both parents. The baby is no longer level 50 like the parents because dino levels are determined by level 1 base stats plus the random level ups. You now have combined the highest random level ups into one baby. So its level will now be higher than the parents, and this baby is now your generation 1 key breeder. Your next step is to get the perfect generation 1 breeder. Use the female baby and breed it with your generation 0 father to get the same stats on a male gen 1, so that you now have a male and female gen 1 with the same and improved stats from your generation 0s. You need to do this to start your crucial mutations to get your perfect dino. Sorry guys, I don't know what's going on. I'm so stuffed up. Not sick, just a little stuffy. It's been really weird here. It's been like snowing, then it's been like 70 degrees for a week, and then it snows again, and I really think that's messing with my system, so I'm a little stuffed up, so please ignore my voice if it sounds a little not usual. Anyways, now that you have the perfect generation 1 breeding pair, you'll want them to get more identical. You'll want to breed them to get more identical females to breed with to enhance your chances to get mutations. Once you have them, you'll keep breeding and wait for a mutation to occur. Once you see that you have a baby with a mutation, it'll probably be 1 to 2 levels higher than the parents, 1 level for a stat mutation, and 1 level for a color mutation. Once you see that the baby has a mutation, for instance, you can see my wolves actually have color mutations. You can actually go into its inventory, click on Ancestry, and oh my god, I didn't realize they had so many mutations. But at the top, you can see where it says random mutations. My wolf has over 2,700 and 1,600 on both sides. So, if you see that it has like 1 out of 20 on the father's side and 2 out of 20 on the mother's side or something, that'll automatically tell you it has a mutation. If you want, you can go into the parents' inventory, compare the stats. If you automatically see that it has a color mutation, then you know that's where it got its mutation from. Sometimes color mutations are hard to tell. If it can be a natural mutation color, as long as it's a different color from its parents, it automatically is a mutated color, whether you want to keep it or not. If you don't want to keep it, you can kill it and try again. Anyways, once you've compared the baby's stats to its parents, it has a stat, whether that's a color mutation or a stat mutation, and you want to keep it, that baby automatically now becomes a Generation 3 breeder. Always continue to breed your Generation 2 perfect pair to get more stats or color mutations. Now that you have a Generation 3 baby, breed it with a Generation 2 that has no mutations until you get a new mutation. And from this point on, you'll always want to breed with a Generation 2 of the opposite gender that has no mutations with your Gen 3 mutations. Gen 3 is pretty much where you'll actually start your breeding lines and start breaking them up a little bit. So for example, you can start doing a breeding line for health, and one for melee. Once you have the ones that you want, once you have like one with really good health and one with really good melee, and you actually want to start combining them, you'll breed the mutated ones together to get your Gen 4 perfect dino. At this point, you pretty much know how to breed. You'll have your Generation 3 mutated ones, you'll have your Gen 2 with no mutations that you'll always be breeding with your Gen 3s so that you can continuously keep getting more mutations, because your Gen 2s should technically have no mutations. Your Generation 4s are going to start being your perfect dinos. They'll have the perfect stats, you'll start getting some more colors, and you can start combining them together to get a perfect dino that you actually want to keep. Now, to actually go into a little bit more, I showed you how my wolves have a lot of mutations. Generally speaking, at the top where it says random mutations, if that number goes over 20, you will no longer be able to get any more mutations. If it says 20 out of 20, that means that dino will no longer be able to give you any more mutations. You can, of course, still combine mutations even if a dino has 20 over 20 mutations. It's just that that dino will no longer be able to give you any new ones. So now that you have your Generation 4 perfect dinos, generally you'll want to get a level 1 of the dino that you've been breeding to now breed with your Generation 4 perfect stat dinos. A level 1 will allow you to get rid of any of the stats that you don't want, like food, oxygen. Food and oxygen are mainly one of the big ones, especially if you're breeding land dinos or birds. A level 1 will be able to make those stats actually a level 1 if you breed with it. That way, if you breed the level 1 with your Generation 4 perfect stat dino, you'll be able to combine the stats that you want with the level 1 stats that you don't want. That way, when you get the one that the final baby that you do want to keep, it should generally have the good stats that you wanted to keep, and now it should have extremely low stats from the level 1 that you now have, so that you can have extra levels to put into the stats that you do want, like health or melee, for example. Of course, it is really hard to get a level 1 dino unless you're an admin. Unfortunately, you will have to be able to go and and knock out the dino that you want and be able to level it over the max level so that it will tame over max level, and then generally you'll want to chronicle it, revive it, and then it should revive at level 1. Of course, as a player, you are able to level up dinos, and when taming a dino, they will never tame over the max limit. So, in this case, for a normal player, you'll want to get the lowest level dino possible. Of course, if you're playing on an easy server, this is probably a lot easier than if you're playing on a brutal server or a hard server. But you'll probably want to get like a level 5. And then you'll want to breed that with your Generation 4 dinos. But yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoy this video. There will be a part 2 of breeding. I am not quite done yet. So please stay tuned, leave a like down below if you liked this video, and be sure to subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Bye, Eskimos!